What's up everyone, it's good to be back. For those of you who pay close attention to the channel, you know we missed 2 episodes last week, which unfortunately was due to some personal circumstances. But that is neither here nor there. The point is, I'm back to give you some more geeky knowledge that you love oh so much. Also, we want to say thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's episode, and stick around at the end of the video for a great offer from them just for the Variant Nation. With that said, longtime watchers of the channel know comics are my first and true love in the world of geekdom. But it's far from the only nerdy love, as I'm also a massive fan of anime, Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Transformers, Harry Potter, and the list goes on for days. And one of those nerdy things that makes the top 10 in my list is anything kaiju, more specifically Godzilla and his universe of kaiju, which is the Japanese term for strange creature, or translated in English, the giant monster. So when Legendary released their Godzilla movie back in 2014, we did a history of Godzilla episode, because again, me and everyone at Variant love Godzilla. So we knew for a long time when the sequel to that film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, was released, we had to do an episode themed around it as well. So today I'm going to give you the origins of the 3 most prominent kaiju in the movie besides Godzilla, and they would be Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. So let's do just that. Mothra was originally created in January of 1961 by Shinichiro Nakamura, Yoshihata, and Takahiko Fukunaga for the serial The Luminous Fairies and Mothra. And yes, I know, I probably butchered all those names. Mothra would make her film debut in the same year of 1961 with a self-titled movie for Toho Studios, the same company that gave us Godzilla, Rodan, Mechagodzilla, and pretty much all the giant monsters we love. As her name implies, Mothra is a giant moth-like monster. She's actually the most common reoccurring monster in the Godzilla franchise besides Godzilla himself, appearing in 16 movies, 2 TV shows, 15 video games, and 13 different comic book titles and forms of literature. So in the kaiju world, if Godzilla is king, Mothra is queen. But what is Mothra and how did she come to be? Well, she's an ancient moth goddess from the tropical paradise known as Infant Island, who was hatched from an egg. She protects that island from the natives who inhabit it and worship her. Mothra even has representatives, or spokeswomen so to speak, as she is usually spoken for by 2 tiny twin fairies, called Shobaijin, which translates to small beauties. The fairies can do this by using their telepathic abilities to communicate with Mothra. A crazy thing about Mothra the casual fan wouldn't know is that she's an immortal deity. Even though she's died several times over the years, she is always reborn through her egg, basically making her the best partner Godzilla could ever have. Speaking of partner, some of you may be asking, what does that mean? Is Mothra a good guy? And to answer that, yes. She most commonly fights on the side of good, having protected the planet several times from the likes of evil monsters like King Ghidorah. With that said, she has been put into conflict with Godzilla on more than one occasion. But hey, even Batman and Superman have fought each other several times in the comics. Mothra also has 2 forms. Her larva form, this is how she begins life as a giant brown larva or caterpillar that hatches from a large egg that can swim and shoot webs. But once she enters her imago stage, she transforms into a giant moth and butterfly-like creature. Mothra is also able to fly as fast as Mach 5. She can also fire laser beams from her antennae and poison stingers from her thorax. She also has protective scales and a kamikaze attack, where she charges her opponent and then explodes. But fear not, she's immortal, so she always comes back. As for weaknesses, she has a pretty big weakness against enemies who have energy-based attacks, as they could set her wings on fire. She could use her protective scales to compensate for this, but overuse of said skills results in Mothra losing her ability to fly. All in all, it's easy to see why Mothra is one of the most famous characters in the Godzilla franchise. But we're just getting started, friends. Next up, Rodan. Rodan was created by Ken Kuronuma and first appeared in 1956 in his own self-titled movie. Much like Mothra, Rodan started off on his own, but would later enter and be featured into the Godzilla franchise, making his debut in the Godzilla franchise with Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster, in 1964. As for Rodan's origin, well, he's a massive pterodon, mutated by high doses of radiation. In his first and only solo movie, we see that he was awakened by a mining operation in a Japanese mining town. And let me just tell you, Rodan isn't a morning person. So he and a female Rodan, which was his mate, went on a rampage and wreaked havoc over most of Japan. It was thought that both of the Rodans were killed when the humans formed a resistance against them, but guess what? That would be wrong. One of the Rodans was only trapped in the lava of an erupting volcano and managed to eventually get free and escape. After this, Rodan would appear in the movie Ghidorah the 3-headed monster, as I mentioned a bit ago, where he would come into conflict with Godzilla at first, but with some persuasion from Mothra, he joined forces with Godzilla and Mothra to fight King Ghidorah. And if you haven't caught on already, this is the plot and movie Godzilla King of the Monsters will loosely be based on. I want to emphasize loosely because you never know what liberties they're going to take, and I haven't seen the movie yet as of shooting this episode. Rodan has appeared in 12 films, about half of which were just cameos, but he was in them nonetheless. He's also appeared in 1 TV show, 15 video games, and 24 forms of literature. Point being, Rodan is no noob to the kaiju game. As for what Rodan's powers and abilities are, he has incredible speed and agility. So much, in fact, that he can create hurricane force winds and even destructive sonic booms by flying at supersonic speeds at low altitudes. His beak is also powerful enough to crush boulders, and his talons can destroy buildings. He can also lift monsters that weigh a lot more than him, like Godzilla for example, and his skin is incredibly durable, being able to withstand missile strikes and even Godzilla's atomic breath. But now, it's time to talk about King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah was created by Tomoyuki Tanaka and first appeared in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster in 1964. King Ghidorah is essentially the Joker to Godzilla's Batman, and is easily one of the most powerful kaiju in the Godzilla franchise, among being one of, if not the most popular villains in the franchise. So much so the character has earned the nickname the King of Terror. Because of his incredible power, Godzilla usually requires the assistance of other kaiju such as Mothra and Rodan to defeat the three-headed monster. Although Godzilla did defeat him once in the 1991 film Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, where Godzilla decapitated King Ghidorah's middle head with his atomic breath. As for the origin of the three-headed dragon, he's had several over the different eras of the Godzilla franchise. During the Showa era, Ghidorah was essentially an extraterrestrial planet-killing dragon who destroyed planets, such as Venus or Mars in the English dub. After this, he arrived on Earth in a magnetic meteorite. King Ghidorah then proceeded to destroy much of the Japanese countryside before being stopped by Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan. This team-up is also more than likely what's going to happen in Godzilla King of the Monsters, as I mentioned earlier. During the Heisei era, Ghidorah was now a genetically engineered monster from the future created by time-traveling terrorists called Futrians from the 23rd century, which was after Godzilla defeated the monster by blowing off his middle head, which I just mentioned a minute ago. Ghidorah then fell into the ocean, remaining comatose for hundreds of years. The Futurians would eventually recover King Ghidorah and fitted its body with futuristic armor, solar-paneled wings, and an all-new mechanical middle head, all designed to fight and kill Godzilla, giving us the epic Mecha King Ghidorah. But of course, that still didn't work, and Godzilla came out with a W. Hail to the king, baby. Then in the Millennium era, King Ghidorah was reimagined once again, this time as one of the three legendary guardian monsters of the Japanese Isles, which actually pulled its inspiration from a real piece of Japanese mythology. King Ghidorah has been in 9 films, 2 TV shows, 18 video games, and 13 different forms of literature, such as comic books and novels. Ghidorah has had many different powers and abilities over his various incarnations over the years, but some mainstays would be flight at the speeds of Mach 3, gravity beams he shoots from all of his mouths, hurricane-strength winds from his wings, and constricting like a giant boa constrictor from all of his necks. He has more powers and abilities, but just know he's one of the most powerful monsters, hence it usually taking more than one kaiju to defeat him. But with all that said, that is your summary of 3 of the most popular kaijus in the Godzilla franchise. But if you still can't get enough giant monster goodness, check out our History of Godzilla episode we did back in 2014. To get a summary of the King of the Monsters, Godzilla. As I mentioned earlier, today's episode is sponsored by Squarespace. More and more, the internet is where we do and find just about everything, which means there's never been a better time for creators and business owners to share what they do with the world. Well, with Squarespace and their amazingly effective all-in-one platform, you could do just that with your own customized website. Squarespace has a ton of powerful and award-winning templates to choose from, allowing you to build an awesome space for your online collectible store, your video content, or maybe even an awesome blog idea you've been waiting to launch. No matter what your interest is, the potential is only limited to your imagination and creativity. Squarespace also offers 24/7 customer support that is second to none, which, believe me when I tell you, is a priceless resource when you run into trouble. Head over to squarespace.com/variantcomics right now, or click the link in our description to get a free trial and receive 10% off your first purchase. We look forward to seeing what you create. First up for Wednesday, May 29th, we have Doomsday Clock issue 10. This stunning issue of the critically acclaimed hit maxi series reveals the secrets behind Dr. Manhattan and his connection to the DC Universe. Now we have the Immortal Hulk issue 18. If you haven't been reading this series and you're a Hulk fan, you need to get on it, as it's one of the best Hulk series to be released in recent years. Here we have Batman The Last Night on Earth issue 1. Bruce Wayne wakes up in Arkham Asylum young and sane, and he was never Batman. This is part 1 of the last Batman story that the powerhouse creative team of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo will ever tell, meaning it's something every Batman fan has to read. And finally, we have Heroes in Crisis issue 9. This is the conclusion to this series. If you want to know how it's all going to end, you need to check out this issue. And that's going to bring another episode of Rant to a close, but remember to check out our link for Squarespace in the description below. Also, be sure to follow us on our social media like our Twitter, our Facebook, and Instagram. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things comics.